The athletes then for the second Women's European Cross Country Championship, starting down by the River Aln, just below the castle of Alnwick. And as I was saying earlier on, a very, very open women's race indeed this. Amongst the favourites, perhaps Annemari Sandell, the reigning World Junior Cross Country Champion from Finland. She lifted that title just a few miles down the road in Durham in March this year. Zhilyayeva of Russia is here. She was 4th last year. Fidatov of Romania is back. She's in very good form, was 3rd last year, and indeed she led her team to the gold medals last year in the team's race. Only 3 women to score in this event. That's the French team there in the starting pen. Very strong one, that.
The athletes spread right across the course. The starter,
Annette Sergent-Palluy there from France, as a former double world cross-country champion. The Portuguese squad always strong. Sacramento took a medal over 1,500 meters at the World Championships last year, or earlier on this year rather, in Gothenburg. She might find this rather a long way, 4.5 kilometers, although a lot of the top women have been saying they feel it is too short, this, for them. They're distance runners. 4.5 kilometers isn't very far. They feel it should be 6 kilometers. There's the British squad, 5 of them, 3 to score. Jane Shields is actually now a team manager of the British junior team. 62 there. Lucy Elliott, 29-year-old from Shaftesbury Barnet Harriers, in very good form, a former 400-meter hurdler. She should be comfortable at least with the early pace. But because it's 4.5 kilometers, there tends to be very, very little tactics in this women's race. It's hard and fast from the word go. The Russians too have a very strong squad indeed. Panchukova in their squad was 6th in the Gothenburg 5,000 meters. There's Sara Wedlund, just gone out of picture there, running for Sweden. Perhaps the best known athlete in Sweden at the moment. Only a youngster. The Romanians there in the red and yellow. Very strong squad. The gold medal winners from last year, and every chance of retaining that team gold for this year. Last year's race was a real cracker between McKiernan and Vaquero. Can we have the same again? Tense moment here for these women on the start line. They start with about 400 or 600 meters of flat, fast running before turning right and running on the hills on this clockwise circuit. And believe me, it is a very, very tough circuit. They've got to run 2 laps and then the run-in to the finish, 4.5 kilometers.
And we're away, the Weetabix European Championships for 1995.
So conditions just about ideal for cross-country running. As you can see, a slight mist surrounding the valley of the River Aln, but no wind at all. It's very, very still indeed. There's hardly a ripple on the water surface of the river. Going is not firm underfoot. Of course, there's been quite a lot of rain. That ground is pretty soggy, but it's not so bad that they'll be running through a quagmire, and you can expect some very, very fast running on this flat stretch and on the downhill sections of the race. It really is quite a magnificent setting, Alnwick Castle, truly beautiful, and as I understand it, has actually been used as a set for an awful lot of films over the last few years. Last year there were a few problems at the start of this women's race. The leading group of women was led off course by a TV camera vehicle. Happy to see that that has not happened this year. And indeed, the early leader is amongst the favourites. That's Elena Fidatov of Romania in the headband with the red and yellow vest. Nothing crazy about this pace just yet, though. Nobody's let the adrenaline rush through the system too fast. You can see Wedlund there to the right, the little Swede in the blue shorts and yellow vest with the long sleeves. It's not particularly cold, but Negura there in 2nd place, another Romanian, finding gloves necessary. And already all the big names up there, certainly several of them. Annemari Sandell there in the light blue of Finland. Let's check their form on this first hill. Very, very steep climb indeed, this. If you drive hard up it, you're only running up it for about 15 seconds, but because you turn a bend before heading up the hill. You don't really get the chance to build up much momentum. Now a long downhill stretch back down onto the flat fields by the river. We'll look at that Romanian packing. 5 in 7 there by the Romanians. That strip, unmistakable, dominating the front of this field, which is beginning to stretch out now. That hill on this first of just 2 laps already sorting them out. Number 2 they're moving through is Daniels of Belgium. This is a difficult section. They're running across the side of the hill, if you like, here. Very difficult underfoot. You can see several athletes slipping to their right there, to the left of picture. That was Wedlund and Negura, I think. And even Sandell losing her footing a little bit. As Daniels hits the front now for Belgium for the first time.
So 2 laps to go from here. And still
Nobody prepared to give quarter. They're still spread 5 across the front.
Romanians still packing in strongly, plus the solitary British.
3:19 at 1 kilometre, so the pace quite healthy. British vests up there too. No sign just yet of Vaquero, the silver medalist from last year, who looked like she was going to win it until there was a desperate sprint in the last couple of 100 metres from McKiernan. Of course, it's very, very early on in the cross-country season. Traditionally, it begins to pick up momentum domestically in most countries in November and December, and then the international circuit takes on its full force in the months after Christmas, January, February, March, with the World Cross-Country in late March. So a lot of athletes won't have recovered from their summer yet. They won't be in their best form. Indeed, there are quite a few significant absentees from this race, from the world of women's distance running, notably Ribeiro of Portugal, who was 6th last year, was hoping to run here, but has had to drop out with flu. She's the reigning European and world 10,000 metres champion, and may well have started here as favourite, but she's sidelined. McKiernan herself has that cartilage injury to one knee. Paula Radcliffe of Britain is choosing to concentrate on her studies and her preparation for the World Cross Country in the Olympic Games next year. And Szabo of Romania is another big, big talent who has decided to give herself slightly longer to prepare for next year's events. Now that's Sandell of Finland, who's pushed through to the front there, and she's beginning to stretch them out. Very interesting athlete, Sandell, still only a youngster. 18 years old, but she was 8th in Gothenburg at the World Championships over 10,000 in a new European junior record. And as I said, she is the reigning World Junior Cross-Country Champion, quite capable of handling herself at this level. 64 there for Great Britain. That's Liz Talbot, has moved up beside Sandell. I just hope Talbot is saving something there, holding back maybe a little bit for the second lap of this race. She's only 20 years old, the youngster from Bedford. Same club, funnily enough, as Paula Radcliffe. Indeed, we understand she's learned a great deal from Paula Radcliffe. They're great friends. But it's always difficult. It takes experience to gauge the spread of your effort throughout these races. 173 there is Sara Wedlund of Sweden. So it's the 2 Scandinavian youngsters at the moment up there at the front. She's only 19 herself, Wedlund, so we've got an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old leading this race. And indeed, Liz Talbot, the 20-year-old for Britain there in 3rd place. Wedlund there to the right had a marvellous race over 5,000 metres last year in Helsinki. Grand Prix meeting there on the track, where she proved that her recovery from anorexia, which affected her in her mid-teens, is complete. And she's certainly moving very, very strongly indeed here. Several of the more experienced big names perhaps hanging back just behind this leading trio, biding their time. Certainly the Romanians still very much up there. 1-2-1 there in the green to the left. That's Dias of Portugal. Portuguese traditionally very, very strong in distance running and in cross-country. But there's no doubt about it, these two are pushing on hard now and really making the rest of them work to stay in touch. Gaps beginning to appear. Liz Talbot still hanging on to third. Sandell and Wedlund, both very, very slightly built, skipping across the surface, not driving hard up that hill, but moving up it very, very efficiently. Fidatov in third, Liz Talbot in fourth. Daniels, I think, of Belgium in sixth. There are another Romanians it was in fifth. This is the difficult section underfoot. You may have seen Wedlund just then go over on her ankle a little bit, but she doesn't seem to have affected her. Olteanu is the Romanian there, 1-3-4. Back in fourth or fifth place, Liz Talbot. Beginning to lose a little ground now, but the whole field are losing ground on this pair up in front. Marvellous running by these two. Whether or not this was planned, I don't know. But they do seem to be dragging each other along and away from the rest. And that gap is becoming significant. Anybody wants to catch these two, they're going to have to start making inroads now on Annemarie Sandell and Sara Wedlund. So 1 lap to go now, with 8 minutes on the clock, and that gap is growing with every stride. In fact, Sandell, just checking over her shoulder there to have a look at Wedlund, realises, I think, that now is her chance to take the initiative. Always good psychologically when you know that you're on the last lap. You're passing every point on the course for the final time. It's a bit like being in the last lap in a track race.
Sinead Delahunty, who was up there right at the start of the race.
So Fidatov leads the chase then behind the pair from Scandinavia, but the gold and silver medals beginning to look decided. Stay with us. Welcome back, and that's Sara Wedlund of Sweden going through in second place as Sandell has broken away over the last couple of minutes. Has a huge gap now, not only over Wedlund but over the rest of Europe's best cross-country runners. Fidatov goes through in third. She's having a real battle for the bronze medal there with Sinead Delahunty, the 24-year-old Irish girl who won the New York Road Mile back in September. That was Vaquero, went through just there for Spain in about 10th place. And you can see how this hard running over the last couple of kilometres has torn this field apart, reduced them to single file. It was all getting a little too comfortable for the first 1,500 metres or so of this race. And Sandell didn't wait too long before showing the others her real class. Those are big gaps. This is Fidatov and Delahunty battling out for third. They've got, what, about 25 metres over Daniels of Belgium. Fidatov was third last year. Whether or not she'd be happy with another third place in 1995 remains to be seen, but I think there's little doubt already over who is going to take gold here. Quite the opposite of last year, which was a marvellous race to the tape between McKiernan of Ireland and Vaquero of Spain. This is one of the great talents of European distance running. Certainly the Africans don't dominate world distance running on the female side of things as they do in the men's. But Sandell, we may be looking at a future world senior champion. She's already, remember, a world champion as a junior at cross country, and she's showing us exactly why here with this dominance of this race. There's Wedlund, so frail, with a great power to weight ratio. And look at Sandell. Not really good use of the arms there, not driving hard up this hill, but doing just enough. And her form on the flatter sections of the course has been very, very good. She's got a deceptively long, raking stride. There's Fidatov and Delahunty in third and fourth. And I think one of the Spaniards there has moved through into fifth place as the chase is on. Still Liz Talbot leading the British challenge there, back in about 8th or 9th place. I think that's one of the Russians, in fact, Belikova, back in 5th place. Nina Belikova, 1:42. Still in the hunt for the medals. Wedlund here on the long downhill drag towards the finish now. Surely is going to take the silver medal. Fidatov here has got a battle on her hands, though, against Belikova. It's Romania against Russia for the bronze medal. Certainly Fidatov has the credentials to win the sprint. She's a world-class 1,500 metre runner many years ago, back in 1986. She ran 4:03 for 1,500 metres, and that is bad news for Belikova. But this surely is the new European senior cross-country champion. Annemarie Sandell, still only 18 years old. She's she's a junior throughout the rest of this year and next year as well. But that is a marvellous run from her. She'll have the choice in March of contesting the junior or senior world cross-country, but no doubting the fact that this year she's opted for a senior title and she's taken it thankfully. Annemarie Sandell, 13.52 is all it took her to win the 1995 European Cross-Country Championships. Sara Wedlund taking a silver medal. That's a very significant step forward in her young career. Great run from her. And look at this, Fidatov loses out for the bronze medal to the Russian Belikova there. Fidatov finishing 1 place lower than last year. Sergent goes through, Delahunty finishing in 6th, I think there. Liz Talbot perhaps in 8th place. That's a great run from her. Behind 1-2-1 there, Diaz of Portugal, Negura there in around 10th. The Belgian vests very prominent there. They've done well in the team race. Certainly British vests a bit thin on the ground at the moment, although I can see Lucy Elliott go through on the far side there, 62.
Just finishing now.
As you may have heard the commentator on site say, the public address, Jane Shields coming through there. Only 3 to score, so each individual's position's very important indeed, more so perhaps than if it was 5 or 6 to score situation. But Sandell winning from Wedlund and Belikova. Those are the medalists in this year's European Cross-Country Championships. The Italians very keen to get underway. 9 kilometers ahead of them then. Some 5 laps of this circuit. Oh, well, at least they've been brought back. At least they've been brought back. I must admit I've seen some run in some races on the continent before where chaotic starts like that take place and they do not come back, believe me. You can falter in your own step, you can slow down, you can shout at them, but some of them will keep going and inevitably the whole field gradually trundles and gets going. And that's certainly not the first time I've seen that, and I'm sure it won't be the last, although it's probably a first in the UK. Very rarely do you get that in English domestic races. I hesitate to say it's because of the foreign influence, but everybody knows you've got to wait for the gun. I'm not sure what the problem is.
Wait. Away we go for the second time of asking. The Weetabix European Men's Cross-Country Championships gets underway.
Now, I was saying earlier during the women's race that because their race was only half this distance, it was likely to be fast and hard from the start, and that the men's race is likely to be more tactical. Well, we'll find out about that now. I have to say that in a lot of cross-country races, you find it's hard and fast from the start, whether it's 9K or the full 12-kilometre distance that they use for the World Cross-Country Championship. There's always somebody, nearly always somebody, prepared to go to the front and push it on hard. And when that person starts having a bad patch, so somebody else has a good patch and moves through and pushes it along. And to place highly in major international cross-country races nowadays, particularly with the Africans present, you've got to be in very good shape indeed. Well, I think we're looking at somebody after a bit of glory here for the early stages. This is Klaus Hansen of Denmark leading at the moment, number 33. Indeed, none of the big names evident so far, but then they've only been running for a minute. Quite a big field, this. Important that they get themselves sorted out in this first straight as they approach the hill for the first time, because it's quite a sharp bend going into that hill. I can see the Britons well positioned. I can already see Andrew Pearson there, number 74, in the centre of picture. And a couple of Italian vests high up, and the green too of Portugal with Guerra inside it, up in about 10th or 12th place at the moment. He started well. That's important because you don't want to get caught towards the back of a field like this or boxed in the middle in the early stages when others may be wanting to push on very hard and breaking away in the first lap or lap and a half. Pearson has moved up into about 5th place now. 64 also up there at the front is Thorsten Naumann of Germany. 115, one of the Italians is moved up there, Michel Legamba. But there's a long way to go yet, although if one has true aspirations of finishing in the top 10 in an event of this kind, you should almost be up there already in the top 25 or so. You can't really move through from the back. If you're struggling with the early pace, then chances are you're going to struggle with the mid and latter pace in a race of this nature. Naumann it is, not an Olympic champion, would be but for the N. In the lead at the moment for Germany. John Downs goes through for Ireland there, 94. And bringing up the rear there, Henrik Alban of Denmark. So we had a Dane right at the very front, and we have a Dane at the very back of this field, which is spread out over, what, some 80 metres or so already. 1-1-2. This is Giuliano Bartocletti of Italy at the front at the moment. And indeed, he's been well backed up in third place there by Michele Gamba, his teammate. But neither of these two big international names, and I really fancy the favoured athletes prior to the gun will start showing very shortly. Certainly, I can see Guerra up there in about 7th or 8th place. Andrew Pearson is up there too. And in fact, there's a couple of British vests in the top half dozen. Well, I have to say, it would be a real turn-up for the books if Naumann were to finish in the top 3 or 4 here. Not a world-class athlete over any surface. Just enjoying these early meters with less than 4 minutes on the clock. That's the chasing group. This little trio out in front with Naumann and the 2 Italians, Bartocletti and Gamba, in the lead. But last year it didn't take very long for Paulo Guerra to get the race by the scruff of the neck and break away, and he pushed on to that victory margin of 16 seconds from mid-race, really. Runaway victory that was, as we had earlier on, if you just joined us some half an hour or so ago, in the women's race, with Sandell taking gold for Finland. Well, Bartocletti there certainly looks very confident. So does Gamba. The Italians do have a bit of a record of running as a team. They quite often use the tactics available to people prepared to cooperate with each other. More so certainly than British athletes do. But at the moment, I think everybody is just waiting for this pace, perhaps to settle down a little bit. One still gets the impression they're going faster than is the optimum pace, and that's why we have some relatively little known internationally names at the front. How about that for a picture? Absolutely glorious. Keith Cullen there for Britain, to the right of picture in the chasing group. Really has achieved his main results, best results on the roads, Keith Cullen. Still only 23, comes from Chelmsford in Essex, to the northeast of London. But recently beat both Andrew Pearson, his teammate here, and Paul Evans, who was second in the New York Marathon a month or so ago, over 10 kilometres. So has shown great form, 2 kilometres in 5:51, that last kilometre in 2:58. So it shows just how fast that first kilometre was. Well, just some 6 minutes gone on the clock. A long, long way to go for these men yet. We're going to a quick break, but do stay with us. Welcome back to the European Cross-Country Championships from Alnwick. Slight change at the front. We have a Frenchman, a 19-year-old Zvershevsky of France, in the lead at the moment. Winner of both the 5,000 and 10,000 at this year's European Junior Championships, and the pace has remained very, very fast indeed up there at the front. Guerra and one of his teammates have only just managed to ease themselves up towards the leading trio. I think Alfredo Bras of Portugal is also up there. Bartocletti, the Italian, has been able to hold his position in the leading group, although certainly it's beginning to settle down perhaps a little bit now as they head out along the flat stretch there, having gone through the lap marker again. Bartocletti pushing the pace along. You can see Andrew Pearson there of Britain to the right of that group. Has shown such good form recently, Andrew Pearson, with a new personal best over 10,000 in a race in Barnsley on the roads. He won over 1.9 kilometres at Gateshead last week. That's a relative sprint for cross-country and distance men, remember, showing that there's certainly nothing wrong with his speed. And that 10K run surely indicates that his strength is very good too. Said he wanted to finish in the top 5 this year, having finished in 11th last year, Pearson. He was Britain's top finisher then, but certainly his form in recent weeks has indicated he's capable of improving substantially on that 11th place. Keith Cullen still up there to the left of that group in the white vest and blue shorts for Great Britain. That's good too. Gomez, the Spaniard, maintaining the Spanish challenge, and indeed several Spanish vests up there in the top 12 or so now. It's looking good for them. Remember, they took the silver medals in the team race last year. The reasoning behind this race having been started last year, perhaps forced by the African dominance of distance running on the world scene, but in particular in the World Cross Country Championships in recent years. The Kenyans in particular have been runaway winners time after time of the individual and team race for several years now. Khalid Skar of Morocco perhaps creating the only blip in 1990 and 1991 when he lifted consecutive world titles. But no Moroccans, Kenyans or Ethiopians here today. This is a battle royal for the Europeans, and Keith Cullen now for Great Britain has moved himself up towards the front. Andrew Pearson alongside him there, 74. Gomez at the front then, in front of the two Britons. One of the French there in 4th place. And Guerra is there too in the green vest of Portugal. Now, is he just biding his time, or is he stretched at the moment? Certainly, his form in recent weeks has been very, very good indeed. He did beat Andrew Pearson a couple of weeks ago, but only by 3 seconds. Every reason for Pearson and Cullen to look on this very, very confidently indeed. My own advice at this stage would be to just settle in there now. Don't take the lead. Let other people do the work at the front. Just stay in touch with the leaders. Keep yourselves in that lead group of 6 or 8. Jon Brown is up there now too for Britain. So 3 Britons in this leading group. 2 Frenchmen, 2 Spaniards, an Italian and a Portuguese. Looking very, very good indeed this for the Britons. 151 there in the green of Portugal towards the back of that group. That is Bras, the second Portuguese at the moment. As you can see, Guerra, who has reddish hair, just coming to the right of shot in the green. He's actually in 8th place. There he goes. 152 he's wearing. Certainly I get the feeling that this pace over the first couple of laps in Alnwick is considerably faster than last year. It could be a case of who will survive it in the latter stages, because I suspect there's several men in this group who are overextending themselves compared with what would be their optimum pace.
Les compétiteurs entament maintenant leurs 3 derniers tours avec toujours Italie en tête, suivi de très près par les Espagnols, Grande-Bretagne et France.
Still Gomez and Bartocletti at the front of this field. Bartocletti very stubbornly holding on to the lead there, although Pearson eases through on the inside. I just hope his coach, Richard Hepworth, is out there on the course shouting at him what to do. Stay in there, don't do the work just yet. It's still early stages. Winning time last year on this circuit for Guerra was 27:43, so we're just at about halfway now in this race. Same circuit as last year. But that group of some 12 men beginning to break away now and opening big gaps on the rest.
2 in that first group.
Chances are if anybody peels off the back of that group, they'll head back towards the chasers very, very quickly indeed. But Jon Brown looks comfortable, wearing number 71 there to the right of that group for Great Britain.
So this is one of the greatest British performances we've seen in recent years in a major cross-country championship.
Well, you can hear it for yourself there from the PA on the course, just how good this is looking for Great Britain at the moment. Certainly British distance running has had its problems in the last 3 or 4 years. It's taken a slight improvement in the last month or so, with Eamon Martin winning the Chicago Marathon and Paul Evans second in New York a month ago. But that's marathon running. This is cross-country, different branch of the sport. And British cross-country running internationally has not been in great shape now for some years, but certainly these 3, Brown, Cullen and Pearson, letting nobody down at this stage. 5 kilometres and 15:05 the last kilometre in 3:03. So they're just churning out these kilometres, an average of 3:01 per kilometre, and that is fast for a circuit, a grass circuit with a very, very tough little climb on each lap. One very positive thing for these Britons too, who are perhaps experiencing this sort of packing for the first time. They're all relatively young, Brown, Pearson and Cullen, is that they'll be aware of each other there. They'll know the others are present, and that'll be helping the adrenaline flow. They'll be wanting to do well for each other here, knowing that the team race is within their grasp, although the fourth counter absolutely paramount in importance for the Britons, and I've yet to see where that fourth runner is for Great Britain. Pearson yet again eases himself into the lead, and I do get the distinct feeling he's holding himself back here. Obviously feels good. Little glance over his shoulder just then was a telltale sign. He's just trying to gauge the form of the others around him. Spaniards there, Gomez, 1:84, and 1:85 for the right of picture, Manuel Pancorbo, who is a good 1,500-metre runner. He's showing very good form over considerably further than the metric mile. There are 4 Spaniards now in this group, so the Spaniards certainly leading in the team race at the moment as Gomez hits the front. But the fact that they're spread 4 across at the front of this field is an indication that none of them really wanting to take it on, none of them wanting to commit themselves just yet, with what, some 11 minutes perhaps of hard running ahead of them. Couple of laps to go. Gomez for Spain there in the lead, a very, very experienced performer on the track and country, although perhaps has never really fulfilled his potential on the track as he has done on the country. There are very few distance runners who can be said to have produced good performances year in, year out throughout their career, spanning 6 or 8 years. Gomez is 28 years old now, in second place now behind Pearson. There's a best of 27:39 on the track. For 10,000 metres, that's considerably faster than any of these 3 Britons. But now Pearson has unleashed what surely was becoming a lot of pent-up energy that he couldn't hold back any longer. For a lap or so, he looked like he was beginning to get a little frustrated there, surely following the orders of his coach and what he knew to be the right thing deep down. But now he's taken it on, and like Sandell, he can't hold back any longer. He's pushing on and beginning to open up gaps. He's breaking up that group. 3:07 for the last kilometre. Yes, it had slowed a little bit. 6 kilometres in 18:12. Guerra has recognised the danger in the gloves. He's moved into third place, the reigning European champion. He's chasing these 2 now and closing that gap very, very quickly. I would see him as the danger man for Andrew Pearson now, but Pearson certainly looking very, very springy. Cullen and Brown there in 6th and 7th, trying to stay in touch with this breakaway from Pearson, who is asking all the questions, and from a group about 10 yards from front to back of some 12 or 14 athletes, all of a sudden it covers 50 yards within the space of about 600 or 800. Pearson has done that damage. Bartocletti, the Italian, struggling now back in 5th or 6th place. I think that's one of the Ukrainian vests I can see back there in about 10th place. That's 212. That is Sergei Lebed of the Ukraine, who's having a marvellous run here up against far better known competitors. Well, we've got about 8 minutes of running to go. Pearson leading from Gomez and Guerra. Everything to run for the Briton. Stay with us. Andrew Pearson pushes on then in this European Cross-Country Championships from there in the race, coming to its climax now. And this group of 6 breaking away from the rest. Pearson has done most of the damage. Gomez of Spain is there too in the red and yellow. Guerra, the reigning champion, is in that group. He's looking dangerous in third place. Essaïd, the 25-year-old from France, is also up there. He's a world-class man on the track and will have good speed if it comes to a sprint. And the 5th and 6th places being filled at the moment by 2 more Britons. Keith Cullen from Essex and Jon Brown from Sheffield, running very, very strongly. And Pearson pushes on again, and Gomez has gone. The Spaniard drops back in the red and yellow. Guerra blowing hard, beat Pearson recently on the cross-country circuit on the continent, but Pearson really is in control at the moment, and Guerra looks to me as though he's working very, very hard for this. This is where the psychological factor becomes important. Pearson has got to remain confident of his own abilities here. Guerra has taken the lead. Pearson has got to stay with him and indeed regain the initiative, in my opinion. Well, look at this burst from Guerra. Is he bluffing or not? Andrew Pearson's got to keep his head down. Got to keep driving on and try to close that gap. If Guerra gets away now, then it's over. And certainly the gap seems to be growing. Gomez is in third, Cullen in fourth, Essaïd in fifth, with Jon Brown back in sixth place. This is beginning to look familiar, although it's taken Paulo Guerra of Portugal much, much longer to get to the front and open the gap on the rest of the field than it did last year on this very same circuit in Alnwick. Pearson now can't afford to let his head drop. He's got to keep driving on and keep the gap between himself and the men behind him. Bras goes through for Portugal. He's their second scorer. The Spaniard's still looking very good indeed in this team race as Guerra approaches the log. That's just about the only obstacle on the race. Last year there was a much bigger log on the circuit. But Pearson has dropped back to third place with Gomez in second. Did Pearson go too early? It certainly appears that way at the moment. Although Britain looking very, very good in the team race with third, fourth and sixth at the moment. Guerra, though, does have the bit between his teeth, doesn't he? Look at this surge from him, striding away now alongside the River Aln. Originally started as a steeplechaser, Guerra, and you have to be tough for that event. Ran in the 1989 European Junior Steeplechase Championships, then finished 13th in the World Cross Country last year. That was his first major appearance on the international scene. He was the first European in that race. Then he was fifth in the European Championships 10,000 last year on the track in Helsinki, and his credentials on more than one surface were assured. He finished sixth in the World Cross Country this year. First European finisher in Durham, just a few miles from here. And certainly it looks like the northeast of England is going to prove a very, very happy hunting ground for Paulo Guerra again in the latter end of 1995. Gomez and Pearson in second and third, fighting for the silver medal. Keith Cullen of Chelmsford back in fourth place, trying to keep the Frenchman Essaïd at bay. Cullen himself is only 23 years old. Gomez here is 28. Some 4 years older than Pearson, and maybe those 4 years will prove the difference when it comes to it. Heading down now, the long, long drag towards the finish. And Paulo Guerra, without any doubt, barring disaster, is going to retain his European cross-country title in very, very fine form, although it's been a harder race for him than last year. Gomez here using that 10,000 meter speed, that track speed, to get away from Pearson in the latter stages, who himself appears to be under pressure from Keith Cullen. Gomez with nervous glances over his shoulder there, trying to find out what's going on behind, and he'll see that he's opening up a gap on Pearson in third place. But this is Guerra gritting his teeth. He's kept the gloves on physically, but in actual fact has really taken them off in the latter stages of this race, metaphorically speaking. Coming home now to a second consecutive European cross-country championship gold medal. Another major title for the Portuguese indeed. Machado winning the World Championship Marathon in the summer in Gothenburg. It's gold all the way for Portuguese distance running these days, and today it's thanks to Paulo Guerra. The winning time, 26:40, so much faster than last year. Gomez comes home for the silver for Spain. Pearson takes that well-deserved bronze. Keith Cullen fourth, and I'm sure he'll be very pleased with that. Essaïd in 5th for France. And Jon Brown takes 6th for Great Britain. That's 3 out of the 4 finishers Britain need now in the team race home already. 151 there for the Portuguese. That's Bras coming home. 183 there for Spain. That's García. The Spaniards coming home thick and fast there. And indeed, this is the 4th Spanish scorer, I think. And if that's confirmed, it will be their team race without any doubt. 182 then. Pere Arco comes home for the Spaniards in around 10th place. Another French finish there, finished 56th. That's the youngster, Sufetsky. And the Portuguese coming home thick and fast. So it looks like the French have taken the team race from Portugal, and maybe France in 3rd place. Ironically, Britain, with 3 in the first 6, could finish outside the medals. We're still looking for the 4th British finisher to come home, and that has been absolutely crucial. What a shame. Unless my eyes have deceived me and I've missed one, then Britain's 4th finisher there, irrespective of whether he's given 100% or not, and I'm sure he will have done, has just kept Britain from taking the medals, or rather, all the men in front of him have. The gold and silver medalists there, Paulo Guerra, the winner again in the European Cross-Country Championships, and Gomez of Spain, the silver medalist.